Morning. Welcome to Southside Garage, and today is day one of the Harley Davidson Sportster Burnout bike project. We're not going to get too far ahead of ourselves. This thing's pretty rusty and neglected, but we're just going to see if we can free up the engine and get it running. That'll be step one. If we can do that, we might just make a burnout bike out of it. Okay, let's have a look at what we've got here. It's a 95 model Sportster. As you can see, been sitting in the weather for a long time in this condition. Mold growing on it everywhere. Got a rust and so on. But of course it's never going to see the road again, this bike. However, if we can free up the engine and get it to run, like I was saying earlier, we might just turn it into a burnout bike. It did have the plugs in it all this time, which is a bonus when it's been sitting out in the rain. However, it didn't have the air filter on it. So over all the years we would have got some water down there, and I would say the cylinders are going to be locked up, but that's the first thing we're going to address, and see if we can get the engine to turn over. What we're going to do first is we'll whip these plugs out and put a jack underneath the swing arm there and get that back wheel off the ground, and maybe throw a bit of lubricant down the cylinders there, and then we'll see if we can turn the engine over using the back wheel. So we've got the plugs out of it okay, and jacked it up, got this back wheel off the ground, and just remove the mufflers off this side here. Well, I was under there with the jack and so on. So next I'm just going to soak these cylinders with some automatic transmission fluid, some ATF down in there, before we try and turn it over. Okay, I've filled up the cylinders with the automatic transmission fluid, and while they're soaking, I'm just going to take off all the stuff that we're not going to be using: mirrors, indicators, lights, gauges, the tins off the exhaust, this rack, rear indicators, and the horn, and then I'll bring you back after that. Okay, so this is where we're up to now with the Sportster. Like I mentioned before, while I had the cylinders soaking with transmission fluid, and then I pulled a lot of the stuff off that we won't be using, like it's just going to be a burnout bike. Removed the blinkers, headlight. Actually, I'll show you the stuff I took off. It's over here. Some of it's there, some of it's up there. But back to the engine. Every so often I just kept on, I put the transmission in top gear, and I was just slamming the wheel back and forth like this, and I was getting a little bit further and further each time, and then eventually I made a full revolution of the engine, and then it started to turn over quite nicely like that. And the cylinders, you could actually hear them sucking quite hard, like up and down, once it freed up. And so also too, in the process of freeing up the engine, I've just been playing around a little bit with the wiring. You know, obviously a lot of the wiring on a motorcycle is to run your lights and all that. But you know, where the blinkers and so on have been disconnected, that's just where you see the plugs with no wires plugged into them. But I'm trying to keep most of the wiring there for the time being until I hook some power up to it and see what I was actually going to do. And so I've actually already done that. I used this battery here, set of jumper cables straight onto the positive and negative wires there, and you wouldn't believe it, we've got starter motor, turns over nicely, and more importantly, I had the plugs sitting up here grounded like that, and I could see that they were both sparking as well while I was turning the engine over with the starter. So all good news so far. Still a lot of work to do before I actually going to see if it's going to start. I want to get all the old oil out of it. The oil pump does seem to be working, so that's good news also. But yeah, a lot of gunk in that tank. Like this bike sat outside in the rain for like years. I know the history of this bike, and yeah, I didn't expect that I was going to be able to free up that engine. I was hoping, but so far so good. Yeah, so the oil tank will be coming off. Clean out all the oil lines and filter, so on and so on. Get that all nice and clean. Throw some new oil in there. I'll be spinning it over a fair bit to before I actually try and start it. You know, I've got to get some more ATF to put down the cylinders there, and before I spin it over, and just try and show it a little bit of love and see if it's going to go again. We've got to look in that. We'll take that big cover off and have a look in there and change that oil as well. Take a look at that chain, so on in there. The charging system, I'm not concerned about it. As I say, it's going to be a burnout bike. I don't mind just recharging the battery before a burnout, and then so that the charging system, whether it works or not, it doesn't matter to me. If it doesn't work, I could just delete it all and get rid of it. This carby. I've noticed that the fuel inlet there is broken off, which is a common thing with these carbies. But just looking online, you can buy that piece for somewhere $20 to $25, or you can buy the whole cheap Chinese knockoff carby for like $70. Like, you couldn't rebuild one of those for that cheaply. So I might even do that yet. I might just buy a brand new one. I've heard good things about them. It's not as if I'm going to race it or anything like that, or it needs to be reliable or anything. It's just got to do a burnout. But that might be a better option too, just to bang a brand new Chinese knockoff on there. But I'll make that decision when I get that far. I'm still a little bit off. That'll be the last thing that I do, would be the carby. Obviously these gauges will be gone and so on. Might see if I can get a set of T-bars to put on there, to some higher T-bars. Make it, I can't ride a motorbike with the fucking handlebars pulled right in like that. I had them on my other bike over there, and I took them off and put mini apes on. I can't stand those type of bars. But yeah, I was quite surprised. The ignition works. all that all works. And we got spark. Spark was the thing that I was concerned about. I didn't really want to have to shell out $300 or more for a like an Ultima ignition or something like that, but yeah, we got spark, starter motor works. Happy days so far. Oh, and we'll also change the oil in the gearbox as well while we're at it. We'll get the front brakes working. I had to take the front brake caliper off the bike to be able to shift it because it had sat in the rain that long that the caliper was like seized on the disc, and you couldn't move the bike back and forth. So took that off. I think I showed in the previous video too what was inside the master cylinder. It was just all bloody. It wasn't liquid. It was all crusty. So, but I'll need to get that working. I've got to have front brakes on it for when I'm putting it in and out of the trailer. Got to have brakes on it. And but I deleted the rear brake. We don't need that. It's only a short distance from where I parked the trailer to where we'll be doing the burnout, so the front brake will suffice. And, I will go through all this wiring. Like I mentioned earlier, a lot of it's for lights and indicators and horn and all that other rubbish. So we'll be able to get rid of a lot of that. I left this one here like that deliberately so that when I hook power up to it, oops, I could see if we had power or not, or what was going on. So that was handy. I will probably maybe use this piece here and just get maybe oil pressure and ignition or something, 2 lights up there, and just so you know when the ignition's on and when it's got oil pressure and so on. But yeah, look at the manky mold growing all over this thing. I wasn't looking forward to taking the heads off of this thing if I couldn't get it unseized, because I think all of these bolts here and that they're just going to snap clean off because they'll be that seized in there, and there's such a small diameter bolt that I'd say they'll just be snapping. So okay guys, that wraps it up for the first video. I do apologise for repeating myself a lot during that video and not really showing you exactly what I was doing or anything like that. But now we're getting down into the meat and potatoes side of things. I'll show you a lot more of exactly what I'm doing and so forth. So stay tuned fellas for part 2, and we'll work on the carby and throttle cables and things like that, and see how we go.